Good morning, boys and girls. Happy Friday. Normally, you wouldn't be in school anyways today because it's a teacher work day, but I wanted to read anyways for you guys. Fun fact, Miss Najmola wears glasses. I normally don't wear them like I'm supposed to, which is bad. So I'm going to use them today like I'm supposed to, since I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the computer trying to find some videos for you guys relating to our Charleston trip that we were supposed to take yesterday. So I'm going to start with Sink or Swim, and where we last left off, Woody and Colton they've graduated boot camp and they're now in Miami at a subchaser school. They're staying in a really fancy hotel called the Everglades, but it's been kind of stripped down so that all of these Navy men and officers can stay there while they're training. They met their new officer, and he clearly has seen some battle, but he's Lieutenant Commander McDaniel, and they have there's a lifeboat that's outside the hotel. It's riddled with holes, bullet holes, and blood stains, and it's from when a U-boat took out a merchant ship, and then instead of taking in those survivors as prisoners, they just gunned them all down. And your question on the Facebook group was to explain the significance of the lifeboat. And some of you put that it was to show the cruelty of the Germans, the Nazis, and Hitler. And yes, that's part of it. The other part is, from an American viewpoint, to look at exactly what we're fighting for, and to remember the lives that were lost, and to remember the purpose behind what they were doing. So we're going to pick up from there and look at chapter 10. For the next 6 weeks, we were even busier than we'd been in boot camp, learning everything Lieutenant Commander McDaniel ordered us to learn about protecting cargo ships and sinking submarines. A lot of it was what they'd already drilled us on over and over in boot camp, only now we knew it even better. Seamanship, boat handling, damage control, firefighting, ship-to-ship communications, and a lot of it was figuring out how to spot a U-boat, the reflection off a periscope lens, a swell like the one that came up under Danny and me, a shadow just below the surface of the ocean, and now how to tell the difference between a U-boat and something else, like a whale or a school of dolphins. The first thing they taught us, though, was why the German submarines were called U-boats. Anybody know? An instructor asked. There were at least 100 of us crammed in a classroom made for maybe 30. A guy who didn't look much older than me raised his hand. I held my breath, wondering if it was going to be like boot camp, where a question wasn't really a question, and the instructor would yell at that kid and order him to do push-ups, or worse. But the instructor just nodded at him and said, "Yes?" "Unterseeboot," the guy said. A bunch of guys laughed. "Speak English," somebody shouted. The instructor told everybody to quiet down. "That's right," he said. "Unterseeboot. It's German. And do you know what that means, son?" The kid looked like he wished he could disappear, but he answered, "Yes, sir, it just means undersea boat. Boot is German for boat." Somebody in the back of the room yelled out, "I'd like to take an undersea boot and kick Hitler in the butt with it," and everybody laughed again. Much to the relief of the kids who was translating, the instructor moved on. More classes followed that one. They taught us all about depth charges, which were big metal drums full of explosives that could be set to detonate at different depths, and how to launch them off our ships with what they called K and Y guns. They taught us how to shoot rocket bombs with devices called hedgehogs. They taught us about how those depth charges and rocket bombs would also damage our own ships, and how we were supposed to do emergency repair when it happened, and when we got hit by someone else's bombs, whether sub or ship or attacking plane. Classes were mostly in sweltering Quonset huts where everybody sweated through their clothes in the Miami heat and stunk up the place. When they lit up cigarettes in there too, I thought I would pass out. A lot of guys smoked cigarettes or used chewing tobacco or dip. Woody said he'd done it all growing up in a tobacco country, but I never saw him with a cigarette, tin, or pouch, and he actually turned green during an especially smoky class one day and went outside and threw up. I stayed away from all the tobacco because I knew Mama wouldn't want me to ever do any of that stuff. On